Authenticity sells more than anything else. So that's not pretending to be somebody else or sell like your neighbor sells or like the door-to-door salesman sells or like the used car salesman sells. It's you being your most authentic version. Because when you're authentic, it invites the other person to be authentic. And now you can find out if there's a real need for your product. I'm there to have a human connection with them and then see if there's a need there. Suddenly, that's when the magic really starts to take place. And you don't have to feel like you're schmoozing anybody or you're twisting anybody's arm or you're manipulating or high pressure selling them.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleacademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou. And boy, do we have an exciting guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is a good buddy of mine. In fact, he's already been a guest on my other podcast, The Sovereign Man. And he's such an amazing business and thought leader that I knew I had to have him on this show. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Adam Allred. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Nikki, I'm glad to be here. I've never felt better about myself. That's the greatest introduction I've ever received in my life. So thank you. I'm going to save that for
boom, boom. There we go. Love it. So, Adam, tell us your backstory for the sake of the business audience listening to you on this show. How'd you get to be the great Adam Allred?
Well, I'm working on making this the great Adam Allred. I'm in the process. I'm far from the mark, but yeah, a little background on my business. I went into college. I didn't realize that I wanted to be a business guy when I was going through college. I was taking the path that was handed to me by the system. Get a job. I'm in college, trying to figure out how to pay for school. And here in Utah, they recruit door-to-door sales guys. It's a big part of like the college experience for a lot of young men as they get recruited into these companies during summer semesters, and they go all over the country, knock doors. And I started doing that. Started selling home security systems my first summer in Detroit. Then I went into Connecticut and I was selling garbage in Hartford, Connecticut. And then I did 4 years kind of all over the country doing pest control, residential. So knocking on people's doors. It was such a phenomenal opportunity, really, really difficult work. But I got to the point where I was making well over 6 figures in a summertime, knocking doors. And I was like, this is crazy. I'm a college kid. I don't even have a degree, and I'm making $150,000 in 3.5 months. So I was like, this is wild. And, and when I was going through college, I realized I saw a lot of guys that were just unhappy in work, guys that were further down the road that had gotten into the kind of the standard outline for us. And it's, kind of college is designed and teed up to make you a cog in the machine, in somebody else's machine, to go work out your life, making somebody else's dream happen. And I saw that, and I saw a lot of people that were just not satisfied. A lot of guys that I looked up to even that were just like not in places that they loved. And I realized I kind of had two options. Either I had to find something that I was passionate about. I got buddies that wanted to be a high school football coach. They wake up every morning and they love what they're doing. Cool. I either had to have that passion for something, or I had to find something that made me a lot of money. And I didn't have the passion. And so I realized with this door-to-door sales experience that when I got out of college, getting an English degree, that I could take this experience I had knocking doors and start some businesses. And I started my first company in Philadelphia, a garbage company, knocking doors. And if you know anything about Philly, there's a lot of mob influence there, a lot of like old Italian gangsters that have kind of survived not being, thrown in the landfill or sleeping with the fishes or going to prison or whatever. And we got into this really rough market. Me and my business partner, we're out of Utah. And we get this yard, we buy these old used garbage trucks. All the money I had saved up from knocking doors, we're buying used garbage trucks, putting new coats of paint on them, buying a bunch of carts, and pretty much put everything that we had into it. And it didn't go well at first. I mean, we were getting our asses kicked. We were working, 17 hours a day. And I don't know how much you want me to go into depth on this, what it takes, but we were putting in so much time to try and make that thing work. And And we weren't hitting the sales. We had door-to-door sales teams that we'd hired, guys that had been working for us, that from my experience in that world, we brought them out to knock doors in Philly and sign up residential customers for us. And they were really struggling. It's a different market in Philly than ones they were used to. In Philly, it's interesting because we had these guys that were knocking in Virginia for half the summer while we earned up money so we could launch our business the second half of the summer, these college kids. And Virginia folks and Philadelphia folks are very different. You're knocking doors in Virginia and they want, hey, you want it's slow paced and you're smiling a lot and they're inviting you in to eat some food. And it's really about building relationships through being really friendly. In Philly, they mistrust that. So if you're friendly with them, they think you're kind of schmoozing them. And so my guys would go up on the doors and they were just getting chewed up and spit out. And we had so many other things on our plate. We weren't knocking doors with them. So we didn't realize why they weren't selling. We're like, why were they selling so well in Philly, stacking these accounts on? And now in Virginia, now we brought them up to Philly and they're just completely tanking. They all want to quit and go home. So we got out, my partner and I pulled over one day and all the work that we had to get that business launched. We pulled over one day, the truck, and we're like, we're just going to get out and knock and see what these guys are running into. Maybe we made a mistake. Maybe it's just harder to sell customers in Philly than we thought. And within an hour, he had sold 4 and I'd sold 5. And we're like, it's easy to sell here. These guys just don't know how to sell Philly people. So we went back the next morning, had a big correlation training with the guys, all the sales reps, and said, look, this is how you do it. When you knock on the door and somebody in Philly, you're not nice. You mirror them. You mirror their body language. If they come at you hot, you got to come back at them hot. So these Philly people come to door and be like, hey, what are you doing on my door? And instead of being like, hey, I'm the garbage guy, we're just out here filling up the routes, you got to be like, hey, I'm the garbage guy, I'm selling garbage, what do you think I'm doing? And then they'll be like, oh, okay, well, what's going on? And then they start asking you some questions. And it took that little paradigm shift, and all of a sudden our guys were just selling lights out, and we built up a really cool company out there. We planned on keeping it. I thought I was going to be in Philly for 20 plus years building this garbage company. But we were taking so much business so fast that the competition, these old Italian guys would come around and be like, hey, let's do business. Let's talk about a deal, and they'd have their pinky rings on and their silk shirts. And we'd meet with them and they'd slide us an offer and we're not interested. We're planning on being here for a while. And they kept meeting with us and they kept making us bigger offers. And finally they made us an offer, cliche, but they made us an offer we couldn't refuse. And we ended up selling that company after 18 months of being in business for $3.5 million. And we're like, dude, this is crazy. We did that in 18 months. And so we took those funds, moved back to Utah where there's the hub of door-to-door sales, started a pest control company. At the time it was called Axis. Now it's called Ninefold. This is our logo right here. Ninefold, we've been doing this for the last 12 years. We've been building pest control branches all over the country. We've had a lot of multi-million-dollar exits over the years. The valuation just of the pest control company right now is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $120 million. It's just wild to think there's this much money in pest control or that much money in garbage. We own a garbage company out in Lincoln. We've got some real estate ventures. We do some marketing. But that's a quick overview on where I'm at with the whole business thing. So I've been doing this for my whole career. I've been in door-to-door sales since college, 20 plus years, and been in business for the last 14.
So why do you think so many people are afraid of sales?
Well, I think sales requires to be good at sales. It requires total commitment to the process. You can't kind of half-ass your way into getting good at sales, particularly door-to-door sales, which is just absolutely grueling. So you spend all day, every day that you're out working, which in our case, it's 6 days a week. You're just knocking on people's doors and you're getting turned down a lot. And so you have to be prepared to get rejected over and over and over again. And it's just sometimes the threshold for a lot of people, it's just too emotionally draining, too psychologically draining. It's physically difficult. You're working in the middle of the summertime, knocking doors in Atlanta or Texas or Phoenix or, wherever, you're just knocking every single day in the heat, getting turned down all day long. And it takes a certain type of commitment to the process that I think a lot of people are just reluctant to. I think a lot of people are afraid of getting rejected. It's hard for them to do that. They take it personally. But sales is the highest paying career in the world, as far as I know. the people that make the most money are the people who know how to sell. And so it's been a phenomenal, not only just an experience in building businesses, but in how much it's developed me and how much I've seen it develop the guys that I have hired over the years and trained. I've hired and trained and managed literally thousands of sales reps now, mostly young men, some young women. And to see how much it shapes someone, the ones that don't quit and go home, the ones that don't give up on themselves, that can take that kind of mental anguish, physical, the difficulties and emotional difficulties, it changes them. They become something almost superhuman from the process.
There's a lot of people that start off in business and they're a little naive about what it takes to actually be successful, right? And they think if they have a good product or they're good at posting on social media, somehow sales will magically come their way, right? They don't realize that it actually takes a conversation with a human being to do that. And I say this all the time. If you don't sell, you don't have a business. You have a hobby. If you don't sell, you don't have a business. You have a hobby. And I'd love to hear your take on that. And I'd love to hear what you have to say to somebody who's reluctant to get their hands dirty and sell.
Well, I think nothing happens until something is sold. Otherwise, it's all just theoretical. You can come up with all the best ideas in the world. You can spin your wheels, making the best concepts and frameworks and social media stuff. And you can have the coolest idea or product, but nothing happens until a sale is made. Selling is the most important aspect of any business. And there's a lot of important aspects of business. It's not the only thing, but it is the most important because nobody else has a job until something is sold. So nothing else happens. And you can have a mediocre product or service, and if you have great marketing, and you see this all the time, it's going to work. You can sell some mediocre stuff. We don't do that. I wouldn't take any pride in that. But I see it all the time. I see businesses that offer subpar services or products, but their marketing strategy is phenomenal. They know how to sell. And you can have the best idea in the world. You can have the best product would change people's lives, but if you don't know how to market it, it's not going to go anywhere. So marketing is fundamentally, foundationally, the most important aspect of any business, in my opinion.
So, step one, embrace selling, right? That's step one. Embrace selling. Step two, acquire a sales skill set, right? You got to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Step three, sell. And step four, rinse, repeat, right? Essentially.
Yeah. And then it's about retention, right? Then and that's also selling. Retention is also about selling. You're keeping people, you're reminding people of why your product is valuable to them. So you spend all this work acquiring customers, and that's all sales process. And then retaining customers in a lot of ways is also a sales process, because even if, like, I do pest control, and it's interesting, like when you do a phenomenal job at pest control, people don't see pests anymore. And so then they don't think they need pest control anymore, because you did a good job. You can work your way out of a customer by doing an exceptional job sometimes. And so part of that is, like, for example, we have our technicians doing sales processes now with every customer. Like, they take pictures of what they're doing, because a lot of times the customers don't even know what you did. You showed up to their house, you took care of the black widow's nest, you took care of the hornet's nest, you did X, Y, and Z on the outside of their house. They don't go outside, they didn't see it. So they just know they're paying this bill, and they have no idea what they're paying it for because they don't think they have any bugs. So part of it is just constantly reminding them that the perception of value is a sales process. So that constantly creating that perception of value in an existing customer is also part of the whole sales process. It's how you retain them. So, like, for example, our customers, when our technicians show up, they're not typically sales guys. We train them. They don't have the natural sales gift. That's why they're technicians. But we have them as part of the process on every service. They write a hand note to the customer saying, "Thank you so much for your business. I'm Bob. I just took care of your pest control today. This is what I saw. Da 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 da. This is what I treated. Oh, by the way, I cleaned up the wood piles by the side of your house. There were some spiders there that I took care of." And then they'll send pictures to them through the software that we use. They'll actually send pictures of the work they do around the house. That's all selling. That's all reminding the customer of why they want to stay with us. And when we do that well, we don't lose customers, because they're constantly reminded of the value that we provide for them.
It's funny. I took my car into the shop, and I'm dealing with a new mechanic. I know him from the gym. He's become a buddy of mine because my old mechanic sold a shop. And it was kind of far, and this guy's a lot closer, so I decided to give him a shot. All he did today was he would call me and he would send me pictures of the parts in my car that were fucked, right? Like the air filter, the air filter inside the glove box. And he just would send me pictures of what mine looked like and what a new one would look like. And says, we're changing this for this reason. And when he gave me the bill, and it was a decent sized bill, right? $1,400. I didn't even bat an eye because given everything he showed me he did, it was like, yeah, okay. That actually sounds right. Sounds reasonable. And the truth of the matter is that what you're talking about is brilliant. You need to show people what you're doing for them, right? In our business, we help entrepreneurs who are non-sales sellers, we call them, right? So these are people who are not good at selling. Mm-hmm. Selling ain't their skill set. So what I teach people, Adam, a big part of what I teach people, it's not the only thing. I've got like 3 main kind of pain points, but one of them is if you suck at sales and you need more sales, you come see Nikki, right? So that's what I teach these guys to do. So this woman, lovely woman, she deals with a big issue called SIBO, right? It's like irritable bowel syndrome on steroids. You can't ever leave your house because you got to hug a toilet bowl. Like you're just going there, like imagine, you're married to somebody and you have this SIBO thing. You can't even get intimate with them because if you want to have sex with them in the middle of it, this happens. You got to get out of the bed and run to the bathroom. Didn't think about that. How crazy that is, right?
Mood killer for both.
I mean, it's a visual, right? It's a visual. So she's like, there's so many people, especially women, who have this, and she has figured out how to solve it for people, how to resolve it. Mm. But she has not been good at selling. She's been a little nervous about it. She's going, well, the way that you're saying to have a sales conversation, I'm not sure that's my style. So my sweetheart, Teresa, she does the coaching. I do the pushing. She does the one-on-one coaching, gets them out of their way. Like she's really good at looking at your mindset or whatever the hell is in the way of you getting to where you need to go. So she figured it out with her, and boom, she went 2 for 2 on 2 discovery calls with new prospects. And she'd basically been going 0 for whatever the number was, right? Boom, boom. And it's just because we did that. And I'm thinking what we should do is we should say, hey, so what happened was you had this mindset that you couldn't do this. You had a call with Teresa. Teresa was able to help you overcome that mindset, and then you were able to get the result. And I think it's important that we go and explain this. And I really appreciate you teaching me this, because retention is about teaching the customer, educating the customer on what you've actually done that's added value, right? That's really what it is, because otherwise they'll forget, right? Is that what you're saying?
So there's value, and then there's perceived value, and perceived value trumps intrinsic value any day of the week. So you can be doing the best job on the planet, but if people don't realize that, if they don't perceive that value, it doesn't mean anything to them. Perceived value is even better than it trumps actual intrinsic value, because that's the selling process. When somebody feels like that you're taking care of them, even if you're not doing much for them, they're going to be willing to pay you an arm and a leg for that, because they can perceive that. Now, we do both. You want to provide intrinsic value for customers. You want to do a really good job on whatever it is you're selling them. But if you want to keep them, there has to be that perception of value they're constantly reminded of what you're doing for them and how good your service is for them or product.
So I think this is very important, because we have not done a good job of this. So thank you for this. This has been helpful to me. See, one of the reasons I do these interviews is because I get a free coaching call from my guests.
You're the legend, Nikki. I'm here to learn from you, man. I'll
buddy. Just listen. When I'm interviewing you, I'm learning from you. I'm going to learn. You can learn from me. I'm happy to do that on a different conversation, but this is my opportunity to learn from you. Remind them of what you've done for them and how it's helped them.
Yep. Perceived value is where it's at. You got to constantly remember that if you want to keep customers, is you got to constantly be working on that perception of value.
Yeah. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Okay, so here's what we want to do here. We want to make sure that people understand this. So they got to understand that they got to embrace the selling process. They got to understand they got to get good at acquiring sales skills. And they've got to go out there and sell, and they've got to keep repeating this. But they've also got to constantly remind clients of what they've done for them and what value this has added to them. And this has got to be a constant process. Constant process. And I think this is very, very smart. This is something to teach coaches to do, because a lot of coaches just intrinsically don't do this. Just go, yeah, well, they know what I did for them. The truth of the matter is, at some point, they're going to forget.
Yep.
At some point, it's going to feel like they did it without your help. That's the truth. That's what it's going to feel like. And that it's not the actual truth that they did it without your help, but they're going to perceive that that's what happened. And you need to kill that perception before it ever has a chance to take root. Brilliant, Adam. Brilliant. Fucking brilliant, man.
Fast learner, Nikki. You picked that up quick, but that's exactly right. Hey, and I wanted to jump on something going back to the actual process of selling. It leads into everything else, because again, if you're in business, you're in the business of selling. That's what it is. Like, you have to know that fundamentally. Business is selling. It's marketing. That's what you got to know. When you're talking to people, a lot of people will say, I run into this all the time, and I run into this particularly with door-to-door sales reps, but they'll say, I'm not a salesperson. And usually everybody, that first of all, there's not a personality that is a salesperson. I've seen introverts as the best salespeople on the planet. I've seen extroverts as the best. I've seen both be bad, extroverts and introverts. I've seen people who are intuitive do really well and really bad. And I've seen people who are, processing and systems and analytical. Those people do really well and do really bad. Really what it takes is a total commitment. It's like we were talking about earlier. It's a total commitment to the process. But here's what people get in their minds when they think about selling. They think often of what they've seen in TV shows, or they think of like a used car salesman that's like coming at them, high pressure, and them trying to buy something and schmoozing them. And they got all these sales lines and hooks that they use. And for some people that works. But the reality is, what sells more than anything else. First of all, the process of selling is the transfer of energy. So it's exactly what you were talking about. If you think you can't sell, you're not going to sell. That's the energy you're taking into that meeting. If you think you can, you have a chance. Now, you may not sell, but you have a chance because you bring that energy to the table. And so, one, this isn't a personality type. It's an energy type. It's a commitment to the process. Are you showing up believing that you can sell this deal? One. The second step to this that just sets people free and liberates them from this false stereotype of what selling is authenticity. Authenticity sells more than anything else. So that's not pretending to be somebody else or trying to sell like your neighbor sells, or like the door-to-door salesman sells, or like the used car salesman sells. It's selling how you sell. It's you being your most authentic version. Because when you're authentic, it invites the other person to be authentic. And now you can find out if there's a real need for your product. Typically, when you go into the selling process, everybody's walls come up. When I knock on a door, they come to that door trying to get rid of me. That's their goal. They're like, how do I get this guy off my door? They already have these walls up, and there's a kind of a literal wall with the door there that you have to get past. When I'm authentic and I'm not trying to get anything out of them, now this sounds like a huge contradiction, because I'm there to sell them a pest control service. But when I can put that out of my mind, and I'm not there to sell them anything, I'm there to have a human connection with them and then see if there's a need there. Suddenly, that's when the magic really starts to take place. And you don't have to feel like you're schmoozing anybody, or you're twisting anybody's arm, or you're manipulating, or high pressure selling them. I never do that. Literally, when I knock on a door, my primary goal is to find some way to connect with that person as quick as I can so I can get around those walls. And that could be through a myriad of different things. Sometimes it's talking about, oh, hey, I saw your license plate. You're from Michigan. I lived in Michigan for a while. Where'd you guys live? Oh, now you're having an authentic conversation, and they don't even know what's going on. They think you're just talking, but you're connecting with them. And now, oh, you guys got 3 kids. I got 3. My littlest one is 1.5 years. Your little boy looks like he's about his age. Suddenly you're having a human connection with them. And I'm not being dishonest or trying to schmooze them. It's not like leading them into a trap. It's just getting their walls to come down. It's me being an authentic human being with them. And now their walls are down. Now we can have a conversation about whether pest control is something they're interested in or not. Now I can say, yeah, by the way, I'm just here because I just set up your neighbors. We're taking care of their house. Since I'm already in the neighborhood with the truck, It's 50% off. We don't want to be pushing bugs from one house to the next. So I'm just taking care of everybody else at the same time. And then invariably, this is what they do. They'll ask you a buying question. They'll be like, oh, well, how much are you guys? Or, hey, do you guys take care of these little ants? I've been seeing these. They'll start to volunteer things. I have never twisted somebody's arm into buying anything from me ever, or tried to manipulate them into buying anything from me ever. I show up, have a human connection with I try to bring that positive energy to that energy to the interaction, and my most authentic self, the best way that I can connect with that person. And now that's where the sales process really starts. Now it's just a matter of me, explaining to them what the value of my service is, explaining to them what the deal is that they're going to get, giving them kind of a bandwagon sense, like, hey, we're taking care of a lot of people right now, so they don't feel like they're the only person signing up. And it becomes an easy process. And I actually literally never ask anybody if they want to buy. So are you ready to do this? That never comes out of my mouth. By the time we get done with it, like, yeah, we take care of the ants. We take care of that. Yeah, I'm going to have my technician over here. He's going to do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's get it done. And we're making the deal happen.
Well, I really like how you do this. It's good. Me, I ask for the sale. I always do. But all the other things you say are very, very much resonating with how I do what I do. I really believe the human connection is the most important part, and having a positive energy transference is super important. And then having a conversation to discover what they're dealing with, what their pain is, and then seeing if they really need us and if they're a good fit for us. And if that's the case, then I make them an offer. Simple as that.
And to your point, there's not a right way to do it, or an only way to do it, I should say. Like, I know a lot of guys that ask, that close the deal. They do hard closes when they get to the end of the sales process, and they do phenomenally well. You don't have to mimic or be exactly like anybody else. You got to figure out what your lane is, and you learn from others, and you apply techniques here and there. But ultimately, you're being yourself on the door. The more authentic you can be, the more likely you are to sell somebody.
Yeah, it's the truth. The more authentic you are, the more likely you are to be able to create a sale. It's a beautiful thing.
It's really fun when you get in that space where you can get out of. I'll give you an example of how to get authentic, because a lot of people, when they put on their sales hat, their personality changes, and all of a sudden they feel all this pressure, and they feel like they got to act this way or that way. My sister came out and she sold with me one summer, and again, door-to-door sales is probably the hardest form of selling. At least it's the hardest form of selling that I know.
It's really, really what separates the men from the boys.
It's brutal. I mean, it takes its toll. My sister, who's not an extrovert at all, she's an introvert. She came out because she just really wanted to prove it to herself that she could do a summer. All of her family members, myself, we'd done it. And so she wanted to feel like she was part of that, which was really cool. And I wanted to support her in it. So she came out, and, she wasn't naturally gifted. And so it took a process for her to kind of find her legs. But she called me at one point during the summer, and she was just bawling her eyes out. I could feel the tears coming through the phone. She was down in Virginia. I was up in Philadelphia. We had her down in that office. And she's like, I've been doing everything you tell me to do, and it's just not working. I'm not making any sales. And she's had 0 sales for the last 2 days in a row. And now she's just at her breaking point. And, the first thing I go to is whether she's like talking about the neighbors and creating a sense of like, everybody's kind of doing this right now. It's like, I'm doing that. I'm talking about the neighbors. I don't know. That's like a technique that I always hit first, is like, if somebody feels like they're the only person signing up with you, there's a strong possibility they're not going to sign up with you. So you got to create an effect, a sense that kind of everybody's doing this. This is what everybody's signing up for. So I push that with her, and I can tell that she is doing that. She's telling me, I talk about the neighbors all the time in my pitch. I say this, I say that. I'm like, okay. Here's what I want you to do, sis. She's got 2 hours of knocking. This is 7:00 at night, and they get done at 9:00 at night. I'm like, for the next 20 minutes, I want you to knock as hard as you can, and I want you to make sure you don't get a sell. I want you just to talk to the customer, but I don't want you to sell them. I just want you to have an experience with them, an interaction with them. Can you do that? She's kind of surprised, taken off guard. She's like, yeah, I can do that. No, don't sell them. I want you to call me back in 20 minutes and tell me you haven't sold a single person. You just talked to him and you had some connection with him. Can you do that? Yeah, I'll try my best. Fine, I'll do that. And she's still flustered, but she's not crying anymore. So she does that. She calls me back 20 minutes later, and she's like, okay, I did it. I didn't make a sell. And I said, well, how do you feel? And she's like, actually, I feel a little bit better. I'm like, okay, because you're not trying to sell anybody. You're not trying to get something out of anybody. You don't have an agenda anymore. You're just knocking on the doors. Now, what I want you to do is knock the rest of the evening. You have an hour and a half to sell. I want you to knock the rest of the evening. I want you to do the best that you know how to do, just like you've been trained, just like we've gone over your technique and everything. But I don't want you to give a shit about selling anybody. I don't even want that to be in your mind. I just want you to show up and you just connect with them and just do the best you can without giving a damn about what the outcome is. That's what I want you to do. Can you do that? She's like, yeah, I can do that. She's got a little more pep in her step now. Well, 9 o'clock rolls around and she has 9 sales. She went from 0 to 9 in an hour and a half. And 9 is a really good day for a full day of work. And it was all because she could step out of that whole pressure feeling like she had to sell somebody, and she could step into being just an authentic human being, a person that's just knocking on doors, talking to people, finding out if there's any interest there, connecting with them. And all of a sudden, of course, there's interest. There's no longer what we call commission breath. Commission breath is what kills.
I fucking say that all the time. Commission breath's one of my things, bro.
It's such a phenomenon. I mean, think about like you walk into let's say you go into a store and a sales rep comes up and says, hey, do you need anything? And they end on that high note. That's that commission breath high note. You know that they're going to try and sell you something. So even if they could help you find what you want, even if they could make your process a lot more smoother, because there's that sense of commission, it immediately puts your walls up and you say, no, I'm interested. I'm not interested. I'm just going to go look around. I'm just going to, browse. The commission breath is what kills sales. And so the only way I know how to do that, to get rid of commission breath, is to train yourself into actually not caring about what the result of it is. You're not caring about the outcome. You're caring about the input. You're just caring about showing up authentically and doing the best that you can when you're there, using your best skills, but you don't care. Like if you don't care, it takes such a burden off of the customer. Now their walls come down because they don't feel like you actually really are going to try and pressure them into anything. And now they'll start actually asking you questions where before they would have just told, yeah, we're not interested. Can I get a card? They'll just tell you to take a hike essentially. But when they don't feel like you're actually trying to get anything out of them, it invites them to actually come to the table and their authentic self now can show up and you can see if there's a deal to be made.
I got to tell you, Adam, I really like how you think about sales. It's incredible to me that you and your team have created a pest control business with $120 million valuation, and that this is based primarily on a sales-centric approach to your business. And of course, that makes total sense. Total sense. So, Adam, how do people find out more about your company, what you do? Where do we send them?
Well, it depends on what company you're talking about. If you're talking about pest control, the actual servicing side of my business, those are all actually they're different LLCs that we set up in different cities that we go into. We do different partnerships with our sales reps. So they work their way up into ownership with us. And then we create a new LLC in whatever city that is. And they go in and they have ownership in that. So for example, here in Utah, our pest control business is called Green Line Pest Solutions. But my marketing, my door-to-door sales team is called Ninefold. You can find us on social media. Ninefold is where we hire all of our sales guys. We train them. They're actually, they get paid from Ninefold, but when they go on the doors, they represent Evergreen Pest Solutions or Green Line Pest Solutions. We have a green in every one of our names. Greenway Pest Solutions. That's what they're actually wearing on the doors, but who they're actually employed by is Ninefold. And we own Ninefold and we own the servicing companies. They're just different companies.
Okay, got it. Okay, so we'll send them over there. So we end every episode by asking you, as our guest expert, what are your top 3 expert action steps? These are your best 3 pieces of advice in bullet point form. Go.
Okay, let me see if this is what you're asking. So what I tell people, and if we're talking about sales, we're talking about business, these are the 3 things that you have to have. Again, it's not a personality type. Okay, you don't have to have a certain personality. You got to get that out of your head. It's whether you have these 3 things. The first one is whether you have work ethic. If you can just work regardless of what the circumstances are, regardless of how many no's you get, regardless of how hot it is, regardless of what excuses are out there, you just get to work. Work will turn up sales. Sales is a number game. You knock enough doors, you make enough calls, you're eventually going to start to sell. Then you have to just commit yourself to working. That's number 1. And there's no shortchange for that. And I've seen the guys with the most amount of skills fail when they don't have work ethic. It doesn't matter how naturally gifted they are. It's about work. And the number 1 sales guys in any industry are the guys that get the most no's. They're just knocking the most doors, making the most calls. The second thing you have to have is you got to be teachable. You got to be coachable. And you're going to learn from yourself more than anything else. You're going to learn from those experiences where you fail. The no's. You keep trying to coach yourself instead of walking away from the door and being like, oh man, they just weren't interested. Nobody's interested. I suck at this. You walk away and say, okay, where did I lose them? At what point in the sales process did they drop off? You analyze it. You're constantly teaching and coaching yourself. And then, of course, you're getting mentors. You're whoever the highest sales guys are in the company, you're picking their brain. You're surrounding yourself with them. What they say, you start to apply some of it. Not you're trying to sell just like them. You never will. But you're trying to pick up nuggets and pieces of, little hacks here and there that will help you. But you got to be teachable. I know a lot of guys that work hard and they just think they've got it figured out and they don't learn anymore and they plateau. They stay at a certain point. So this is where you really see guys take off, guys and girls, is when they work hard and they're constantly in a position of learning new things, new techniques, applying new, mindsets towards the process. And then the last thing that you have to be successful, and all this applies to just business in general, is you have to have a never quit, never say die attitude. Because even if you're working hard, even if you're coachable and teachable, you are going to have moments in business, many moments in business, and you're going to have many moments in sales where you want to quit. And you're going to have every good reason in the world to quit. You're going to have all the excuses handed to you, why you can't do it, why this doesn't work, why you should give up. And you have to have a never say die attitude. If you can commit yourself to the process, come hell or high water, whatever it takes, you're going to work, you're going to learn, and you're going to just keep going regardless of what excuses are waiting for you out there. You will find success. I promise you that. It may look different. You're going to fall forward a lot of times. You're going to pivot and make some, call some audibles, but you're going to keep moving forward because you don't quit. You don't quit. You don't quit. You always fall forward. When you trip, you fall forward. You just get back up, pick yourself back up, fight through it. You're going to turn out as a phenomenal salesperson. Doesn't matter what your personality is. And the awesome thing is you are going to be so unique. No one will sell like you because it's so authentic and it's just you.
Amen, man. Adam, buddy, I love this conversation. I learned a ton. That piece of coaching you gave me around retention and always continuing to remind clients of what you've done for them and the value that you've added to them so that it's always top of mind for them is gold. Honestly, that is worth the price of admission. And anybody who learns from you how to sell is going to learn a skill that's going to hold them in good stead for the rest of their life. And I'm really blessed that you and I got connected on social media. That's one of the great things about social media is I come across some incredible people like you, and I reach out to them and I say, hey, you seem pretty cool. Would you like to do an interview with me on my podcast? Some people don't respond. Some people say no thanks. And some people like you say, yeah, I'd love to. And more often than not, men like you and even some women who say, yes, I'd love to, because Danielle Hage is someone that I met through social media, and she came on both my podcasts as well.
She's amazing.
These are my kind of people. They are quick deciders. I have learned something from my coach and mentor, Mark Von Muser. I'm going to introduce you to Mark. He's about to go away to some business trip in Asia for the next 3 weeks. But when he's back, you need to meet him. Mark used to be Tony Robbins' director of sales, coaching, and training. He helped add $150 million a year to Tony's annual revenue. So he's the shit. And he is the greatest kind of heart-based sales expert in the world. What he has to say about it, how he teaches it, top notch. I've learned a ton from him. But he taught me these 4 things. He said, if you want to be successful, and successful means wherever you are, you could be someone starting out, you could be someone like you with a $120 million valued company who wants to get to the next level. There's 4 qualities you've got to embrace. Quality number 1 is you must be decisive. You must make a decision to say, yeah, I'm a yes. So when I said you want to come on my show, you were an instant yes. I like working with people like you. I don't like working with people that want to make me jump through 15 hoops before they decide whether or not they're going to do anything with me. You know what I mean? So that's number 1. Also, a decisive person, someone who really very quickly attracts success, right? Very quickly attracts success. Secondly, you got to be committed to the process. And you talked about this, right? You got to commit, because when you start at whatever, if you're at 120 million valuation and you say, I want to be a billionaire, buddy, you need to be a whole different human being, and there's a process you got to commit to, which is going to involve you sucking for a while before you get good, right? That's the truth. Thirdly, you said this, you got to be teachable, you got to be coachable, you got to invest in yourself. You are the most important asset in your world. You have to invest in you. And honestly, I've worked with some of the top thought leaders in the world. Robin Sharma, who wrote the legendary book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, that sold 15 million copies. If you've never read that book, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best personal development books you'll ever read. He said to me once, because I used to be his health coach, he said to me, Nikki, if you want to double your income or your net worth in any given year, what you need to do is you need to triple your current investment in your personal professional development. Triple it. At the time, I was maybe investing a couple thousand a year into myself. Maybe did a course here and there, that sort of thing. And I said, that means I got to go to like $6,000. He goes, yeah, at least. I'm like, okay, so I did it. I attended another conference, and then he said the next year, triple it again. So I went to like $20,000 the next year. That was a big leap. But I got to tell you, he was right. I did double my income and then some each year that I did that. And then the final thing is you got to be resourceful. Tony Robbins says it doesn't matter what level of resources you have. It's not about how much money you have. It's about how resourceful are you? How much time, energy, as well as money are you willing to put into your betterment, into your success? And I got to tell you, what I've learned from you is that you're a man who embraces those qualities in your day-to-day life, which is why you and I think, connect well, we get along well, and we become buddies. And I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And thank you for teaching me something really relevant and important when it comes to retention. God bless you, my man.
God bless you, Nikki. Thanks for having me on, and you're doing God's work, man.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. And listener, check out Adam and his ninefold company on social media. Reach out to him if learning about sales and wanting to get into the field of sales is something that's relevant and important to you, especially if you're a young man or woman. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who you know needs the message. And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. To find out more about today's amazing guest, the one and only Adam Allred, go to the show notes at thethoughtleaderrevolution.com or wherever you happen to listen to this episode, be it iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Rumble, YouTube, or what have you. Until next time, God be with you, and goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.